Before we continue the interview with Mr. Joyce, I'd like to say we have provided a handout that identifies best practice suggestions on how to be inclusive of birth parents in the early stages of a placement. Let us continue with the interview. Mr. Joyce, let me quote something you said in a Learn More statement about the stage of acceptance. You said this stage can sometimes be difficult for foster parents and met by them with mixed emotions as they realize that their foster child will be leaving their home. Is this where the caregiving parents experience grief and loss?
Caregiving is an emotionally loaded role. When foster parents are recruited, agencies seek parents who are caring and psychologically able to connect with children. It's often impossible to turn off this caregiving as a foster child prepares to leave the foster home.
I see what you mean. What is a healthy characteristic of a foster parent can go hand in hand with the personality of someone who will experience strong feelings of grief and loss.
Exactly. I call it the paradox of being a secondary parent. Generally, foster children respond to the caring environment. The foster parents bond with the child, but it is usually a temporary care situation. But the parents' feelings aren't temporary. As a foster mother told me, I am constantly balancing my feelings for the foster youth I care for with the recognition that they will be leaving. It's never easy. In fact, sometimes the children that gave me the most difficulties are the ones I miss the most.
Do the same stages of grief and loss that apply to birth parents and foster youth also apply to foster parents?
In many ways, the stages are similar. It might be best to hear examples of parents who are in grief. Let's begin with Zoe, who is in the denial stage.
I became so connected to Josh. He and I just clicked. I got him to settle down. He was getting good grades, and he was even helping me cook. I got as much from him as I gave him. It was a blow to me when they came and took him. I knew from the beginning that we couldn't adopt him, but I can't believe they pulled him from our house after all his improvement.
If a parent feels like Zoe, what can be done at this point?
If the agency you are affiliated with has a foster parent support group, this is a good time to participate. If your agency doesn't have a support group, talk to your caseworker about your feelings and ask your caseworker if he or she can put you in contact with other foster parents who have experienced grief and loss connected with the child leaving their home. Their input and support can be very helpful in moving past the shock and denial of a child leaving your home. Also be aware that each loss can act as a trigger, activating other losses from the past. When that happens, you have to go back and work through the stages of grief and loss again. Let's listen to another parent, this one in despair.
I think the hardest thing for me was when I really realized Zach's mother was getting better. I was happy for her, but sad as I knew Zach would be gone someday. Now my thoughts are preoccupied with him leaving. I struggle with sleeping as I lie awake thinking how much I'm going to miss him. I think about coming home from work and he won't be here for our one-on-one ball games.
Manuel seems to be depressed and in mourning before the child is left. How can Manuel help himself?
As with denial and shock, foster parent support groups can be very helpful in working through the feelings of despair. When in mourning, it can be very helpful for foster parents to request a meeting with their social worker on how the placement will end. Such meetings can help with mourning, as they allow foster parents to structure out how they will plan for the remaining days of the placement. Additionally, team meetings often help foster parents recognize how much they have helped the youth and family involved in foster care, which can balance feelings of grief and loss. Being able to express your feelings of mourning with your social worker and other support people, and balancing them with an understanding of your helpfulness can be validating and helpful. Let's move on to Maddie, who is parenting Carly.
Although I kept many of my feelings of anger to myself, I definitely was upset over Carly going home. I remember at the family team meeting we discussed the follow-up services. Carly and her mother were acting so excited. Talk about being negative. Instead of my thoughts being about supporting the plan, I was thinking how the system failed and wondering why nobody could see and feel what I did about the birth mom. She really doesn't deserve Carly.
Is Maddie really expressing her feelings about Carly leaving, or is she just angry about it happening?
Maddie is angry. It is important to be able to express your feelings of anger, but it is equally important to select where it is appropriate to express them. Anger feelings are often exaggerated, so it is important to share them where and with whom they are understood without being misinterpreted and negatively reflecting on your fostering ability. Again, foster parent support groups can be a safe setting in which to express your feelings of anger. Also, anger can often block your ability to clearly understand your purpose. Some foster parents find it helpful to plan and normalize being angry, as they realize this is a normal emotional response in foster parent grief and loss. Another normal response is worry about the child as he or she returns to a home setting where risks might still exist.
A special ceremony or ritual can help a foster family work through painful emotions resulting from a child leaving.
Let's hear from Manuel again as he talks about his morning.
After I accepted that Zach was leaving, I began to see that he needed to be with his own family, and that was that. His mother had worked really hard to make the necessary changes. However, I still feel sad and think about him when I drive home from work.
Can mourning be a healthy stage for a foster parent?
Mourning has a healthy component to it, which is that it motivates us to be reflective and assess the foster care placement as it ends. One healthy and creative expression of mourning I have seen in numerous foster parents is to use this time to create a memory book for their foster children regarding the time that they have been with them. Not only does this leave the children with a concrete, transportable mechanism by which to reinforce how they were appreciated, but it allows the foster parents to work through the various memories they have about the placement. Other foster families mark the ending of a placement with a ritual, such as a special dinner or taking family pictures, or a candle ceremony. One candle lighting ritual I'm aware of helped a foster mother with her guilt and mourning over a foster child leaving through reunification was done within a foster parent support group. It involved lighting several candles representing the caring adults in the foster child's life and processing how that can be supportive without diminishing the original flame. As with all stages of grief and loss, support and the ability to express your feelings are important. These can be found with other foster parents, your social worker, or through a foster parent support group. In the next statement, Maddie has worked through her anger and now has some guilt.
I also started questioning myself about why I couldn't be happy for Carly, as she is happy to go back home. I actually felt really guilty about my anger and bad thoughts about her getting back with her mom. I started to question if being a foster parent was worth it and if I had the right qualities to continue fostering.
Guilt is a component of grief. Guilt can motivate a parent to evaluate the placement in terms what helped and what didn't, and to consider her post-placement relationship with the child.
This has got to be hard on Maddie. I can understand her concerns about being a foster parent. What can be done?
Guilt over a placement ending because of a successful reunification is a normal emotion. It is the last stage in attempting to hang on to the youth you have cared for. It is a stage of lingering feelings, and it is an important time to take care of yourself. You will be exhausted, and this loss may trigger others you've experienced. You'll need time and energy to deal with your grief. This is also a good time to begin assessing what type of relationship you hope to have with the youth and her family after she leaves your home. If it is possible and appropriate to have contact past the end of the placement, focusing on how you can be helpful into the future helps move guilt into an active phase of continuing your helpfulness. As with all of the stages, seek out support people or foster parent support groups in an effort to work through these feelings. Now for our last story, in which Zoe, a foster mom we met earlier, demonstrates acceptance.
Luckily, our agency has a foster parent support group. Once I started opening up about my feelings of grief and loss, I learned a lot of foster parents go through these feelings. My own grief and loss journey started when I was able to see that we offered Josh a safe and caring family when he needed it. Also, our caring for him was important in helping his parents make the changes they needed to make in order to be together as a family. I've learned what great things we can do if we open our hearts to a child.
This seems so promising. Do you have any comments?
Acceptance that a placement will end and that the foster youth will be leaving your home is an active stage. It is a time when you realize that although you and the birth family might have many differences in values and lifestyle, the birth family is where the child should be, if at all possible. If the placement ends with a successful reunification and the foster parents and birth parents have a good relationship, it is a time to implement the post-placement contact plan. Closure meetings can be helpful for both the social worker and foster parent, as it allows them to review the placement from the perspective of what helped and what didn't. Additionally, it is a time for foster parents to recognize their skills in providing foster care, and hopefully to recognize how they progressed through the stages of foster parent grief and loss. The insight of foster parents who have experienced grief and loss is invaluable in efforts to support other foster parents in their challenges with foster parent grief and loss.
Plan how you want to say goodbye to the foster youth leaving your home. Consider creating transitional tools to help you and the child mark his or her departure.
These stories put a chill down my spine. It seems that feelings of grief and loss are inevitable. What can be done if the foster parents suffer with complex grief and loss? That is, they get stuck in one of the phases like despair or anger.
If a foster parent thinks his experience of grief and loss has become complex grief, he or she should seek professional help. In fact, some child welfare agencies have employee assistance programs that foster parents can access for this purpose.
Can you give us some general ideas of what foster parents can do to help themselves with grief and loss and to possibly prevent complex grief?
I suggest the following proactive steps. Continue to educate yourself about foster parent grief and loss. Go to conferences and workshops. Figure out how grief and loss can impact your personality and emotions. Think about the role of foster parenting and understand its complexities. Plan how you want to say goodbye to the foster youth leaving your home. Consider creating transitional tools to help you and the child mark his or her departure. A common tool is to make a memory book with the child that reflects the time you've spent together. Rituals such as candle lighting can be meaningful and helpful as well. Request a discharge meeting if they are not being done. Work out the boundaries with your social worker and the birth parents regarding an ongoing aftercare relationship with the foster youth. Use your support systems. Many agencies have support groups for foster parents. If your agency doesn't have a support group, check into starting one. I have known of ceremonies and/or rituals being conducted in foster parent support groups as a way to mark the ending of a placement in order to assist with the foster parent's grief and loss. Work towards a good relationship with the birth family and actively listen to what they feel. Be aware, some foster youth will not be able to leave your home in an appreciative manner. In fact, some youth need to make a hostile departure from the foster home as a result of their inability to balance the grief and loss of leaving a foster home with the anticipation of being reunited or moving on to another placement. Be aware, other family members, not just you, but also your birth children, other foster children in your home, and members of your extended family may be grieving too. Be aware that due to their own grief, they may not be able to support you in your grief, and try not to take that personally. Be aware that how a placement ends can impact the grief and loss experienced by all family members. For example, a normal grieving process can be difficult if no continued contact is allowed, if the departure is abrupt and unplanned, If the placement ends with the youth emancipating